Good morning. Welcome to our Yin Yoga practice this morning to celebrate the solstice. So I'm in the southern hemisphere and we're celebrating summer solstice. If you happen to be in the northern hemisphere, then you'll be celebrating the winter solstice. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the country on which I am practicing today, the land of the Wadawurrung peoples. I would like to acknowledge their elders, past and present, pay my respects to them, and also pay my respect to their continuing connection to land, sea, and sky, and acknowledge that this land is stolen land. To me, Wadawurrung land is this grove of ocean, this ceaselessly windy place, this space for quiet reflection, listening to the sea, this land of rolling waves and scudding clouds moving across the blue, this place of peaceful emptiness. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to my own ancestors, and I'd invite you to do the same, paying respects and acknowledging the land on which you are practicing on and the traditional custodians of that land, and also perhaps your own ancestors who brought you to be here today with me. So let's begin our practice with just bringing ourselves into the space that we are in, the time and place that we are in right now. So if you would like to, you might want to close your eyes. You don't have to, but it can be nice to bring ourselves inwards for a moment and just use our senses to check in with what's going on right now. Whether you've closed your eyes or not, just take a moment to see what is around you. So if your eyes are closed, then you just use your mind's eye to picture the space that you are physically in. Or you might like to picture a space where you would like to be. What colours can you see? What shapes? Do you like what you see, or would you rather bring a different place into mind to bring yourself into a space of calm and quiet and peace? And as you're seeing what's around you, perhaps paying a little bit of attention to the breath and slowing that down. Just noticing when you're breathing in, are you sending the belly outwards with the breath? When you're breathing out, can you fully let go of the breath and everything that you don't need right now? Perhaps simply saying to yourself, I know I am breathing in. I know I am breathing out. I know I am breathing in. I know I am breathing out. And then taking your attention to sounds, any sounds that might be in your space with you. Perhaps the hum of electrical equipment, perhaps noises close by from other people within your space or animals. the rattling of a door, which I have, then sending your attention further out from the space where you currently are, perhaps to outside, perhaps to other rooms in the building, and what sounds you can hear. Other people, birds outside, wind in the trees. And then just quickly checking in with your other senses that we haven't been with yet. Are there any aromas wafting into your nostrils? Just noticing them. Do you have a taste in your mouth from a cup of tea, from toothpaste? And then, very importantly, what can you feel? What's the surface below you like? Is it soft or hard? The clothing next to your skin. Does it allow you to feel soft and comfortable? Or is something a little bit irritating? Just again, paying attention to that. And checking in once more with your breathing. Making sure that the breath is as long and slow as it can be right now for you. Breathing all the way into the belly. And with the exhalation, letting everything go completely. Finish off this first part of our practice, taking 3 conscious breaths in and out 3 times, slowly, deeply, to really bring yourself into the space of this practice. And then we will be ready to come into our first shape for this morning for me anyway. So we're going to do a toe squat, which is how I always like to start my yin yoga practices, because we're starting at the bottom of the body and stretching into some fascia that often doesn't get opened up. So I'm in the toe squat shape. So the important things with toe squat are that the ball of your foot and your toes are facing towards the floor. And then we take the weight of our body onto our heels. Now, what you might like to do is to have a support underneath your knees. And which is just going to change the feel of the stretch, doesn't necessarily make it any easier or more difficult. And the other option is you might like to have a support behind the back of your knees, which I find does make the stretch a little bit more comfortable. So it is a big stretch, and if you're like me and it's first thing in the morning, then your body and your tissues are quite cool. So just go into it with some ease. And take the weight off the backs of your feet whenever you need to. So you just come forwards onto your hand, have a little rest, and then come back into the toe squat. So with yin yoga, we are aiming to stay in a shape for a number of minutes, and that varies depending on what shape we're in. So often when we're stretching a smaller muscle group, then we won't stay in the stretch for as long. But that's what yin yoga is. It's about stretching our fascia, which is the connective tissue that runs throughout the whole body. and is the space also where energy runs through our body. And as an energy worker myself, that's why I was so attracted to Yin Yoga, because this allows that energy to flow. Also, more tangible things like fluids through the body. And it is just such an important tissue to get access to. And the only way we can stretch it is by holding a stretch. So if you're doing a short little 20-second stretch of a muscle after exercise or before exercise, then that's not going to be enough to actually access the fascia. You need to hold the stretch for a few minutes. And I forgot to set my timer, so I don't know how many minutes we've done, but we'll stay here for another couple. So just remembering to ease off whenever you need to. And then come back into the stretch for the feet. So we're starting at the bottom of the body. Really important for grounding ourselves into the space we're in and into the practice. Summer solstice doesn't have a very grounded energy. It's quite a light, airy energy. It's often thought of as the festival of joy. And of course, at this time of year, we have a lot of celebrations going on, regardless of what your religious or spiritual beliefs are. There's going to be celebrations for the end of the year. And we can get quite ungrounded by the energy of those celebrations. So it's really nice to take some time out and ground yourself back in. It's a very outwards, external energy at this light end of the year. And of course, for anything I'm saying about summer solstice, if you're in winter solstice, then it's the opposite for you. So take another couple of breaths in your toe squat, and then we're going to come out of this shape. So it's always good when we come out of a stretch to just do something to bring the energy back into that area. So with our toes, we might want to lightly tap them on the floor. We might want to tap them against each other. We might want to just shake the feet in the air just to acknowledge that we have done that stretch. And then we're going to come into a reclined butterfly. So because summer solstice is the festival of joy, I've chosen to do all my favorite yin shapes this morning. So we are getting stretches for the whole body, but I just wanted to do my favorite shape. So what you need to do is to have a support behind you, ideally. And the butterfly is our legs. So we have our legs in a diamond shape, and that can be quite with the feet quite close to the body or quite far away. So your diamond can be as long or as short as you need it to be. And then we are going to lie back onto our support. So if you don't have a support, then you don't absolutely need it. So the stretch is really for the insides of the legs. And you're going to feel that even if you don't have a support, but the support helps it to feel like a really delicious stretch. I think we get a nice stretch along the front of the torso as well. And then with your arms, you might like to take them over your head so that you're getting a bit of a stretch into the shoulder area as well. You can obviously just leave them down by your sides. You might have them out to the side, cactus shape. Whatever you want to do with your arms is absolutely fine. If you do have any questions, then please pop them in the comments, and I'm just going to hop up and check for any comments. When I normally teach online yin yoga, we do it on Zoom, so you can actually be with me in the space. But today, with a celebratory free session, I just thought I'd do it live on YouTube. And something I also forgot to mention, normally we'd have some lovely relaxing music going on with our yin yoga practice, but because I'm streaming this live, it can cause some copyright issues, so I'm not playing any background music today, but you should absolutely feel free to have some music for yourself if you would like to. So in our yin yoga shapes, we should always feel free to adjust the shape as we're holding it. So it shouldn't be a practice where you get into the shape and then you feel like you have to stay there for 4 minutes without moving. We're aiming to stretch and release our body. So you might find that at any point during a hold that you need to make some adjustments. You might, in this reclined butterfly, you might need to bring the feet closer to the body or further away so that you continue to feel the stretch that you want to feel. You might want to change the position of your arms, whatever position you've taken. Please feel free to do that. Just take another few breaths in your reclined butterfly. It's quite tricky to feel like we can take deep breaths with the belly stretched out, so it's good practice to notice that we are still breathing deeply. And then you might like to roll yourself onto your seat to come out of the shape, especially if you're on a support. And then we'll just bring ourselves directly into our next shape because it's rebound for what we just did. So we just did a really good back bend, and now we're going to do a forward bend. we're going to do a swan shape. So to come into swan, we want to come into all fours, and then we want to bring one foot in front of the other knee, and then we're going to extend the back leg behind us. Sorry, I just need to move myself forward when I'm hitting my bookshelf. So this is a swan shape. And you can choose to take this into a sleeping swan where you bring the weight of your body forward down onto the floor. Some adjustments, you might want to have a support under the hip of the front leg. That might make it feel more comfortable for you, especially if that hip's way up off the floor. You can choose to just simply stay upright in your swan. You might want to have a support in front of you to lean down on as well, which makes it a really beautiful stretch for me, but it might still feel quite challenging for you. So remembering also, you don't have to have that back leg completely straight. You can have it bent and come into more of a figure four shape with your legs. Please ignore that timer. I'll just reset it. So your swan shape might look very different to mine. So we're looking for a stretch into our inner thighs, our adductor muscles, into our hips. And in whatever shape you are getting a stretch in those areas, that means you are doing it right. Remembering to breathe. Probably got lots of room for the band in this shape. So perhaps just noticing and slowing the breath. So with our solstices, we have an increase in energy of either the yang, the outward, active, masculine type of energy, or the yin, the inward focused, passive, feminine energy. So at our summer solstice, we've reached the peak of the yang energy. We have the longest day of the year. And then we will return to the yin. So in the Taoist tradition, they say that when the yang peaks, it shifts to yin and vice versa. So if you're at winter solstice time, then you're having a peak of the yin energy and then it'll shift to yang. So everything is always coming back into balance. And in our yin yoga practice, we're aiming to bring our physical body back into balance by stretching and allowing energy to move throughout our system. And we're doing that by accessing some stillness, some quiet, not necessarily some relaxation, because doing stretches is certainly not always relaxing. So whichever solstice you're at, we're still in alignment with that energy. Taking your last couple of breaths in your swan. And then easing yourself up and out of the shape. And we'll just come into a rest on our backs to rebound from that stretch. You might like to bring some small movements into the legs after that stretch. Just give them a bit of a shake. Or you might just like to be still and notice the internal energy in those areas that we've stretched through the inner thighs, through the hips, the buttocks. And then we're going to come into a different shape before we do our swan on the other side. So for this one, we again need a support behind us. And we're going to take ourselves lying down on our support. So we want the support behind the ribs. And we're going to take ourselves lying back over the support. You may also want another support behind your head. So this stretch is for all along the front of the torso into our upper back. You don't have to have your legs stretched out long. You can keep them bent, keep the feet on the floor, or you might want to take another butterfly shape if you didn't get enough before. Whatever you want to do with your legs is fine. And yes, you don't have to have that support under the head. If your neck and shoulders allow you to drop the head back to the ground, then you can take the shape like I'm taking without a support under the head. Everybody's neck is different. It's another shape where our belly is really stretched out and it's kind of feels difficult to breathe deeply, so it's a good thing to focus on. In the practice of Celtic spirituality, and you can see in my background, I've got a Christmas tree, so I am a modern Celtic spiritual household, celebrating all the things in December. But summer solstice was called Olban Heaven, and I love that it's pronounced heaven, given that it's the festival of joy. So it's a festival of light, acknowledging this lightest part of the year. But wherever we have too much light, we need to make sure that we're not letting ourselves be burnt out by all that outward flowing energy. And Yin Yoga allows us to rebalance that as well. Take the space and time for yourself. Excuse me. Take your life in this shape, which I didn't give a name to. I kind of call it the crucifix shape now. Crucifix stretch. And then moving slowly, perhaps rolling yourself again onto the side to push yourself up. And we'll come directly into our swan on the other side. So hopefully you can remember which foot you had at the front before. And we want to bring that opposite one in front. And please remember also, whenever we do a shape that is on each side separately, then you might find that the second side is quite different to your first side. Remembering you might want that support underneath your front hip, and you might want to take your sleeping swan down onto a support. Or you alternatively might want to remain upright, be an upright swan. Remember to please adjust your shape at any point. I'm feeling like I need to adjust my shape. I had a few twinges in this front knee in the last few days, and it's not so comfortable in that shape. So you might find you need to put a support under your hip if you didn't. You might find you need to come upright if you were a sleeping swan. You might find you want to put a support underneath your sleeping swan if you didn't have one already. Hopefully you've got some beautiful music in the background for yourself. To fill in the space. But it's very unusual for any of us to simply be, just be doing these shapes with no input from anything else. So if you've chosen to just do a silent practice, I salute you. Taking your last few breaths in your second swan shape. And then gradually bringing yourself upright. And coming into a seat for a bit of a rest before we go into our next shape. So you might want to give the legs a bit of a wriggle, a bit of a shake. Do some neck rolls or bends. And then our next shape is a straddle, which is basically a wide-legged forward fold. So your shape, again, might look very different to mine. You may want to have a support in front of you that you can bring yourself forward onto. So basically, that's all it is. So it's a forward fold with the legs apart. The legs can be whatever distance apart you want them to be. If it's too hard for you to have your legs completely straight, then you can bend them. So we're going to stretch into the inner thighs again here, and also along the spine. Also getting a stretch along the front of the thighs as well, into our buttocks at the back. Lots of stretching going on. And you can, of course, for some people, they'll feel a big stretch just simply sitting upright in this position. So please adjust for whatever stretch you need to have this morning. The summer solstice would traditionally be celebrated in several different ways, but one of them was a dawn ceremony. So I couldn't quite bring myself to do dawn, and I didn't think anybody else would be doing that either. Well, no, there's always someone, isn't there? But as close as I could get to dawn. And the other thing to note is that today is not the exact solstice day. It's actually tomorrow, the 22nd of December. But I was unable to teach on the 22nd of December. So the 21st had to be it. And I always feel with the energy of anything like the changing of a season or the moon cycles, that it's a constantly flowing, changing energy. It's not like one day that energy is all there and the next day or the day before it's not there. It's building up and collapsing away in gradual patterns. So as you're staying in the hold, remember you might want to adjust your shape slightly, change the distance between the legs. You might notice that the backs of the legs, our hamstrings are getting a good stretch and they start to release, so you can take the weight of your torso further forward. Take your last couple of breaths. And then moving slowly to sit yourself up. And then you can bring yourself to have a rest on your back. Unfortunately, I have a hair clip in a very inconvenient position. So again, just bring yourself into stillness, or perhaps swinging the legs a little bit, doing a bit of windscreen wipering with the legs, if that feels good to you. Perhaps bringing the knees into the chest, because we just had that big stretch of the lower back. And then we're going to bring ourselves into a twist. So twists are wonderful for bringing stretches to many different parts of the body all at once. So for this twist, we're going to do twisted roots, it's called. So what we do is bring our knees bent, feet on the floor. We cross one leg over the top of the other leg, and we drop our knees down to the side. And then with the head, you might choose to twist that to the opposite side. You might choose to have your arms out to the sides or not. You might choose to have your arms up above your head to again give you a bit of stretching into the shoulder area as well. I'm going to put one hand behind my head to alleviate my hair clip digging into me. So please take whatever position you like with your arms. If you find that this twist with the knees on top of or crossed over each other is a bit too much, you can just have them stacked each other. And the other thing is you can also have a support under your knees. So that can be nice as well. It is said that at the time of summer solstice, or either solstice, the veil between the worlds, between the spirit and the physical worlds, is thin. So we can access information from higher powers, from those who have passed, our own higher self. Of course, we can always do this, but at these points in the year, it's more accessible for us. In our twist, we're getting all the muscles along the spine into a stretch. Obviously, our legs, again, our glutes, and all the internal organs in the abdomen, your digestive system, getting stretched as well, which is so good for them. Take your last few breaths in your twist on this first side. And then we're going to bring this shape to the other side. If you want to have a little bit of a break between the two twists, do whatever you need to do, shaking your legs, just stretching out flat. And then when you're ready, taking the twist to the opposite side. So the opposite leg over the top and dropping the knees down to the opposite side. And again, remembering that the second side might be quite different for you than the first side. You might need to have the knees stacked instead of crossed. You might want to have your arms in a completely different position. You might want to support under your knees, even if you didn't have it on the first side. Excuse me again. Summer solstice is a time where we can integrate things that have come to us since the winter solstice. And that also means letting go of things that we've realized are not for us. But it's also the energy of manifesting whatever we want to bring to ourselves in the next half of the cycle between the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And now I invite you to take your last few breaths in your twist. And then easing yourself out of the twist, bringing the knees back up. And perhaps taking yourself to lie flat, giving the legs a bit of a shake, having a yawn, rocking the hips a little bit from side to side. And then we'll come into our final shape before we do a relaxation to finish our practice. And our final shape today is a child's pose. So most people are familiar with the child's pose. You might want to have a support in front of you. And you can have your knees together or separate them a lot. And then we're bringing the weight of the torso forward. So you don't have to have a support. You can bring yourself down onto the floor. You can have your arms out in front of you, or you can have them at your sides, beside your legs. Whatever version of child's pose is the one that you want for today, then please take it. We'll just be here for a couple of moments, a couple of minutes. Still checking in with our breathing, even though the belly is compressed, sending the breath all the way into the belly. Child's pose gives us a stretch into our quads, the fronts of the thighs, to our lower back. And then for your relaxation shape, you may want to stay in child's pose, especially if you've chosen to support yourself. It might feel really comfortable for you. Alternatively, you might like to bring yourself into a seated shape that is really comfortable. You might want to lie on your back with the support under your knees. The most important thing is that you're just going to feel relaxed for the final few minutes of our practice. So we're not trying to stretch anything for these last few minutes. We just want to be relaxed and able to notice the energy flowing through the body as a result of what we've done for the last hour. Once again, I'd invite you to close your eyes down if you would like to. Otherwise, perhaps take a soft, gentle gaze, or turn your sight inwards, even if your eyelids are open. And let's just take a brisk journey through the physical body, checking in with all the different parts of the body as we move through and just noticing them, paying them some attention, seeing how they feel. Starting with your feet, your lower legs, your knees, your upper legs, your hips, your buttocks, your lower belly, your lower back, your mid belly, your mid-back, your chest, your upper back, your shoulders, your upper arms, your elbows, your forearms, your hands, your neck, your throat, your jaw, the back of your head, your nose, your cheeks, your ears, your eyes, your forehead, the top of your head. Noticing energy flowing throughout your body and acknowledging that that energy is flowing throughout your whole system, physical, mental, spiritual. I'd like to thank you for choosing to do this solstice practice with me today, or whatever day you choose to do it. I'd like to acknowledge all the teachers who've come before us. I wish you a blessed solstice, a Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, and a very happy New Year. Namaste. Shanzai, which means thank you.